I was 32 years old, working as a programmer in Boston. I had been dating Sophia for 3 years, and we had been living together for the past year. It was a Wednesday when my life changed forever. I had just received a huge bonus at work for completing a major project and decided to surprise Sophia by coming home early. As I approached our apartment door, I heard laughter coming from inside. Opening the door quietly, I caught her on the phone laughing about her affair with a guy named Jake and how clueless I was. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever felt that cold shock of betrayal when someone you trusted completely showed their true colors. I met Sophia at a tech exhibition in Boston 3 years ago. She was 29, working in marketing, and caught my attention immediately with her confident walk and animated discussion with a vendor about digital strategy. She had this way of commanding attention without trying, dark hair, always perfectly styled, and a smile that made everyone around her feel special. When our eyes met across the crowded exhibition hall, I knew I had to talk to her. I gathered my courage and approached her at the coffee station, making a comment about the underwhelming quality of free exhibition coffee. She laughed and agreed, suggesting we find a real coffee shop after the event. That first date at a small cafe near Boston Common was electric. We talked for hours about our careers, our dreams, and our shared love of travel. Sophia was passionate about her marketing work, and I was drawn to her ambition and creative perspective on life. Our relationship developed quickly. Within 3 months, we were spending most nights together, either at my place or hers. Sophia was the spontaneous one, always planning weekend adventures or surprising me with tickets to concerts and shows. I was more structured and practical, providing the stability she claimed to love. We balanced each other perfectly, or so I thought. The memories of our happy times still feel so vivid. Weekends driving up to coastal Maine, walking hand in hand along rocky beaches. Fall evenings exploring Boston as the leaves changed, cups of hot cider warming our hands. Quiet nights cooking together in my small apartment, dancing to old records while sauce simmered on the stove. My family adored Sophia, especially my mom. They hit it off immediately during our first holiday visit, spending hours looking through family photo albums and sharing stories. Mom would call me after visits to tell me how lucky I was to have found someone so charming and perfect. I agreed with her completely. After 2 years of dating, we decided to move in together. Finding our apartment near Fenway Park felt like a triumph after weeks of disappointing viewings. I remember the day we got the keys, how we celebrated with champagne on the empty living room floor, making plans for every room. Sophia had an eye for design and transformed our space into something that felt like it belonged in a magazine, yet still comfortable and truly ours. Our future seemed clear and bright. We talked about buying a house in the suburbs, eventually getting married within the next year or two, and starting a family. I had even started researching engagement rings, setting aside money each month for the perfect one. As my career advanced, I became lead programmer on a major project for a prominent client. The opportunity was huge for my career trajectory, but it meant long hours and high stress levels. I started working late, most weeknights, sometimes not getting home until after Sophia was already in bed. Weekends were often interrupted by urgent fixes or client calls. I felt guilty about the time away from our relationship, but tried to compensate with small gestures. Sending flowers to her office randomly. Leaving love notes on the bathroom mirror. Planning special date nights when my schedule allowed. Sophia seemed understanding, always greeting me with a kiss when I finally made it home, asking about my work with what seemed like genuine interest. Looking back now, I see that the cracks in our relationship probably started forming during this time, though I was too preoccupied to notice. But in my mind, we were solid. I was working hard to build our future. And Sophia was the supportive partner I thought would always be by my side. The first subtle changes in Sophia began about 2 months before everything fell apart. They were small things that I brushed off initially, but they compounded in ways I only recognized in retrospect. She started working later, claiming her team had taken on several new clients. Many nights she would come home smelling faintly of wine, explaining there had been client dinners or team celebrations. Her phone became a constant companion, more so than usual. Sophia was always connected to her devices for work, but now she guarded her phone differently. If it rang while we were together, she would look at the screen with an expression I could not quite read before stepping into another room to answer. One night, I noticed she had changed her phone password. When I mentioned it casually, she said her company had implemented new security protocols requiring regular password changes. Then a name started appearing in our conversations with increasing frequency: Jake. According to Sophia, Jake was a new creative director who had transferred from the New York office. She spoke about him with unmistakable admiration, describing his innovative campaigns and industry connections. At first I thought nothing of it, even felt happy that Sophia was finding professional inspiration. The team meetings and work events multiplied. Twice, sometimes 3 times a week, Sophia would text that she would be home late because of a strategy session or client emergency. I believed her because I wanted to, because my own work schedule had been demanding for months, and because the alternative was too painful to consider. One evening, as we were getting ready for bed, I noticed an unfamiliar cologne scent on her blouse. When I asked about it, she explained that Jake had given her a quick hug after she helped him resolve a client crisis. Her explanation came too quickly, too rehearsed. That night was the first time I lay awake beside her, doubt gnawing at my confidence in our relationship. Still, I pushed my suspicions away. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the pressure from my own work was making me irrational. I had always prided myself on being logical, and the logical part of me insisted that Sophia would never betray me. We had built too much together, shared too many dreams about our future. I tried to recommit to our relationship, requesting time off after my project deadline. I planned a weekend getaway to a coastal bed and breakfast we had always wanted to visit. When I presented the idea to Sophia, her reaction was not what I expected. Instead of excitement, she seemed conflicted, eventually explaining that she could not possibly get away that particular weekend due to a major campaign launch. She promised we would go another time, kissing me apologetically in a way that almost concealed her relief. My closest friend Daniel was the first to voice what I had been afraid to acknowledge. We met for beers one evening while Sophia was at yet another work event. After some hesitation, Daniel revealed that he had seen Sophia at an upscale restaurant downtown 3 days earlier during lunch hours. She had been with a man he did not recognize, their body language intimate in ways that looked far from professional. They had been holding hands across the table, and at one point the man had leaned over to kiss her. I became defensive, suggesting Daniel had mistaken someone else for Sophia or misinterpreted a business lunch. The restaurant was dimly lit after all, and he had only seen them from across the room. Daniel backed off, but the concern in his eyes stayed with me. That night, I found myself looking through our recent photos together, searching for evidence of the happiness I was beginning to doubt. In most images, Sophia was smiling, but I noticed her eyes seemed distant in the more recent ones, as if she were physically present but emotionally elsewhere. For the first time, I allowed myself to wonder if my girlfriend was falling in love with someone else. The day that changed everything started as the most promising one in months. Our team had finally completed the software project that had consumed my life for nearly a year. The client was thrilled with the results, and my manager announced a substantial bonus for everyone, with a special performance bonus for me as the team lead. For the first time in months, I was told to go home early and celebrate. On the way home, filled with excitement, I stopped at a jewelry store. With part of my bonus, I purchased the engagement ring I had been eyeing for months, a platinum band with a modest but high-quality diamond. Sophia had once pointed out a similar design in a magazine, and I had saved the image. The jeweler placed it in a navy blue velvet box that felt substantial in my pocket. Next, I stopped for champagne, her favorite flowers and ingredients for a special dinner. After months of late nights and divided attention, I was ready to focus entirely on us to strengthen what might have become fragile in my absence. In my mind, I rehearsed a speech about renewed priorities, about putting our relationship first, now that the major project was complete. As I approached our apartment building, I felt a surge of nervous excitement. I had texted Sophia earlier that I would be working late again, so she was not expecting me for hours. The surprise would be complete. I balanced the groceries and flowers carefully as I unlocked the building entrance and took the elevator to our floor. When I reached our door, I heard laughter coming from inside. Sophia was home early too, which was unusual but not concerning. Perhaps she was watching something funny or talking to a friend. I shifted the packages to free a hand for my keys, then paused when I heard her speak clearly through the door. Poor Arnold has no idea, she was saying, her voice light and amused in a way that made my stomach tighten. He thinks I am at some marketing dinner right now. I stood frozen, keys suspended midair. Jake, you should have seen his face when I told him I could not go away for the weekend he planned. So serious and understanding. Like he always is. So boring. And predictable. More laughter, and I realized she was on the phone, not speaking to someone in our apartment. That provided small relief, but my heart was already racing with adrenaline. I know we need to be careful, but honestly, he is so absorbed in his work that he notices nothing. Last week, I came home with your cologne all over me, and he barely questioned my excuse. My hand dropped to my side. The flowers suddenly seemed ridiculous. Their bright colors. A mockery of what I was feeling. No, baby, I will figure out a clean break soon. Just let me get through next month when he helps pay off the last of my credit card. Playing the supportive girlfriend while he works, those long hours has been exhausting, but the freedom to be with you will be worth it. Another laugh, lower this time, conspiratorial. You are so much more exciting than him. More passionate, more ambitious. Arnold is just so steady and reliable. Like a piece of furniture. There was a pause, and I heard her footsteps moving deeper into the apartment, her voice becoming slightly muffled but still audible. I need to go get ready now. I told Arnold I would be home late, so we have plenty of time. I will meet you at your place in an hour. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, but must have been only moments. The shock was physical, like being punched repeatedly. My vision narrowed, and I felt sweat break out across my forehead despite the cool air conditioning in the hallway. My first impulse was to burst through the door and confront her, to throw her betrayal in her face and watch her try to explain away what I had heard. The anger rising within me demanded expression, validation. But something deeper held me back, a sense of dignity perhaps, or simply self-preservation. With hands that did not feel like my own, I carefully placed the flowers and champagne on the floor outside our door. I removed the small velvet box from my pocket and looked at it one last time before placing it atop the flowers. Then I turned and walked away, without making a sound. I took the stairs instead of the elevator, needing the physical exertion to process what had just happened. In the garage, I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Then I started the engine and drove with no destination in mind, just away from the life I thought I had. For hours, I drove aimlessly around Boston, my mind replaying Sophia's words in an endless, torturous loop. As darkness fell, reason began to return, and I checked into a hotel near my office using my corporate account. The anonymity of the hotel room was both a comfort and a reminder of my new reality, instantly displaced from what I had considered home. Sitting at the small desk, I took out a notepad and began writing everything I knew. Everything I had heard, organizing my thoughts in the systematic way that helped me solve complex programming problems. The facts were undeniable. Sophia had been having an affair with Jake for some time. She had been deliberately deceiving me. She had been using me financially while planning to leave once her debt was cleared. She had been mocking me to her lover. The betrayal stung sharply. But beneath the pain, a cold clarity emerged. I would not give Sophia the satisfaction of a dramatic confrontation. I would not plead, or fight, or demand explanations. Instead, I would disappear from her life as completely and quietly as I had left our apartment. By morning, I had formulated a plan. I texted Sophia that I had been called away for an emergency client meeting in another city and would be unreachable most of the day. She responded with a sad face emoji and a brief message, wishing me luck, the casualness of her deception now glaringly obvious. I waited until I knew she would be at work, then returned to our apartment. Moving efficiently, I collected all my essential documents: passport, birth certificate, financial paperwork, and the family heirlooms my grandmother had given me. I took only enough clothing to fit in one suitcase, leaving no obvious gaps in the closet that would immediately signal my departure. Next, I visited my bank and transferred my portion of our joint savings to a new separate account. Sophia and I had maintained individual accounts as well as a joint one for household expenses, so I knew exactly what was mine to take. I left her share untouched, refusing to stoop to theft, even in my anger. Using my lunch break, I contacted a real estate agent who helped me secure a 6-month lease on a small apartment across town, paying a premium for immediate availability. The place was sparsely furnished and characterless, but it would serve as a transitional space while I rebuilt my life. Throughout the day, Sophia tried to reach me several times. Her messages evolved from casual check-ins to increasingly concerned questions about when I would be home. I replied only once late in the afternoon with a brief message stating that I needed some space and would be staying with a friend for a few days. It would buy me the time I needed to complete my exit strategy. That evening, I met with a lawyer friend who advised me on the legal aspects of separating our lives. Our apartment lease had both our names, but there was a clause allowing early termination with a penalty. I would lose my security deposit, but it seemed a small price for a clean break. My lawyer also helped me draft a formal letter, documenting exactly what personal property I had taken from the apartment to prevent any later accusations of theft. The following day, I spoke privately with my manager, explaining enough of my personal situation to request working remotely for 2 weeks. Having just completed a major project successfully, I had accumulated considerable goodwill, and my request was granted without questions. This would allow me to avoid any potential workplace confrontations if Sophia came looking for me there. By the end of the second day, I had effectively ghosted my own life. My new apartment was set up with basic necessities. My work arrangements were secured, and my finances were separated. I had even changed my phone number, providing the new one only to my family, closest friends, and work colleagues with strict instructions about not sharing it. The enormity of what had happened and what I was doing in response hit me that night, as I lay in an unfamiliar bed. The pain was immense, radiating through my chest in waves that made it difficult to breathe. But alongside the pain was a growing sense of self-respect. I had refused to be the oblivious boyfriend, the convenient financial support, the boring, predictable furniture in Sophia's life. I had chosen myself, my dignity, and my future over the comfortable lie of our relationship. For a full week, I maintained radio silence with Sophia, apart from one brief message informing her I needed time to think. Her texts and calls to my old number became increasingly frantic, oscillating between concern, anger, and emotional manipulation. From the glimpses I allowed myself, I could see her trying every angle to re-establish contact without ever acknowledging any wrongdoing. It confirmed my decision to disappear rather than confront. However, my strategic retreat was disrupted when Sophia appeared at my office building the following Monday. I was working remotely as planned, but a colleague texted to warn me that she was asking for me in the lobby, looking upset and determined. When the receptionist refused to call me down, insisting I was unavailable, Sophia caused enough of a scene that security became involved. Realizing that a confrontation was now inevitable, I decided it would happen on my terms. I texted Sophia suggesting we meet the next morning at a public park near my office. She agreed immediately, her relief palpable even through text. When I arrived at the designated bench by the small pond, Sophia was already waiting. She looked both perfectly put together and subtly disheveled, her outfit impeccable, but dark circles visible beneath her expertly applied makeup. Upon seeing me, she rose quickly, moving, as if to embrace me. I stepped back, maintaining distance between us. "Where have you been?" she demanded, her voice a mixture of relief and accusation. "I have been worried sick. You just disappeared, not answering calls, not coming home." "What kind of person does that?" I regarded her calmly, feeling strangely detached from the storm of emotions I had expected. "I think we both know why I left Sophia." Her expression flickered momentarily before settling into indignant confusion. "What are you talking about?" "If this is about me working late, we have discussed this. My job is demanding right now with the new accounts. I came home early last Wednesday." I said simply, "I heard your phone conversation with Jake." The color drained from her face, her carefully constructed narrative collapsing in an instant. She opened her mouth, closed it, then attempted to rally. "You were spying on me. Listening to my private conversations. That is a violation of my privacy, Arnold." Her voice rose defensively, attempting to shift blame. I was not spying. I came home to surprise you with my bonus. I heard you through the door laughing about how clueless I was, how boring compared to Jake, how you were using me to pay off your credit cards before dumping me. Her strategy shifted instantly, tears welling in her eyes. It is not what you think. Jake means nothing to me. It was a stupid mistake, a moment of weakness, because I was feeling neglected with all your late nights. The audacity of her attempting to blame me for her betrayal almost made me laugh. Sophia, please. I heard everything. This was not a one-time mistake. This was a deliberate, ongoing affair that you were not only not sorry about, but actually found amusing. You mocked me to your lover. People say things they do not mean. When they are confused, she pleaded, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. We can fix this. Couples therapy. A fresh start. 3 years together has to be worth fighting for, does it not? I love you, Arnold. Only you. I looked at her tear-streaked face and felt nothing but tired resignation. The relationship is over, Sophia. I have moved out. I have paid my share of next month's rent. But after that, the apartment is your responsibility. All my essential belongings are already gone. Her tears dried up remarkably quickly, replaced by cold anger. So you are just going to throw away everything we built because of one conversation you overheard. That is childish and cowardly. It was not just one conversation, I replied. Daniel saw you and Jake at Maison Laurent 3 weeks ago. You were kissing. How long has this been going on? Sophia, month's shock registered on her face at the mention of the restaurant, followed by a flash of calculation as she realized denial was futile. Her strategy shifted again. Fine. Yes, Jake and I have been seeing each other. But it started because I was lonely. You were never home, always working late, always distracted. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to talk to me if you were unhappy. You were supposed to end our relationship before starting another one. You were supposed to be honest. She scoffed. Honest. Like you are being now, sneaking away without even giving me a chance to explain. There is nothing to explain, I said quietly. I heard you in your own words. You were using me financially while planning your exit. You found me boring and predictable. You laughed at me behind my back. With your lover. What explanation could possibly change those facts? People make mistakes. Arnold. Nobody is perfect. Her voice had risen to a near shout, drawing glances from passers-by. I stood up from the bench, signaling the end of our conversation. This was not a mistake, Sophia. It was a choice you made repeatedly, day after day, and now I am making my choice. Do not contact me again. Do not come to my workplace. It is over. As I turned to leave, she called after me, her voice breaking with what sounded like genuine anguish. Please, Arnold, I do love you. We can start over. Give me another chance. I paused, looking back at the woman I had once planned to marry. No, I said simply, and walked away, leaving her on the bench, as joggers and dog walkers moved around her life, continuing its normal rhythms, despite the destruction of ours. The weeks following our final confrontation were among the most difficult of my life. Despite the clarity of my decision, the emotional aftermath was brutal and disorienting. I struggled with insomnia, lying awake in my new apartment, haunted by memories of happier times with Sophia, and tortured by imagined scenes of her with Jake. When sleep did come, I often woke from vivid dreams where we were still together, the momentary confusion upon waking, bringing fresh waves of grief. Work provided some escape, but my concentration suffered. Lines of code that would normally flow easily became challenging puzzles. My team was understanding, attributing my distraction to general exhaustion after our big project, unaware of my personal turmoil. My new apartment felt more like a hotel room than a home. Minimal furniture, bare walls, boxes. I had no energy to unpack. I would return each evening to its emptiness. The silence, a constant reminder of my solitude. Some nights, the temptation to contact Sophia was almost overwhelming. Not from a desire to reconcile, but from a desperate need to understand how something that had felt so real to me could have been so easily discarded by her. I resisted that impulse, knowing it would only prolong the pain. Instead, I focused on building a support system. Daniel became a regular presence, dropping by with takeout food and distracting conversation, never pushing me to talk but always ready to listen when I needed to. Other friends, hearing vague details of the breakup, rallied around with invitations and check-ins. My mother flew in from Chicago, staying for a week to help me settle into my new place. Her practical approach to my heartbreak, a mixture of sympathy and tough love, was exactly what I needed. She helped me shop for furniture, organized my kitchen, and most importantly, reminded me of who I was beyond my relationship with Sophia. When she left, my apartment finally began to feel like it might eventually become home. At work, my manager proved unexpectedly supportive after I finally shared a simplified version of my situation. She adjusted my projects to allow more independent work while I regained my footing and connected me with the company's employee assistance program. The 3 counseling sessions they provided became a lifeline, giving me tools to process my grief and anger in healthier ways. I found a regular therapy group for people dealing with infidelity and betrayal. Listening to others share stories similar to mine helped normalize my experience and emotions. The group became a safe space where I could express the full range of my feelings, without judgment, from devastating sadness to burning anger to embarrassing admissions of continued love despite everything. Gradually, I established new routines. Morning runs along the Charles River became a daily ritual, the physical exertion clearing my mind and exhausting my body enough to sleep. I joined a local gym, channeling my anger into weightlifting, finding satisfaction in the tangible progress of increasing strength. I downloaded meditation apps and practiced mindfulness techniques that helped me stay present rather than dwelling in painful memories or anxious futures. I reconnected with old hobbies that had fallen away during my relationship. My guitar, long neglected, came out of its case. I joined a weekend photography group that explored different Boston neighborhoods, rediscovering the city through a new lens. I even returned to indoor rock climbing, something I had loved in college but abandoned when Sophia showed no interest. Through these activities and my therapy sessions, important lessons began to crystallize. I realized how much of myself I had compromised in my relationship with Sophia, subtly shifting my preferences, habits, and even values to accommodate hers. I saw how I had ignored warning signs, choosing willful blindness over confronting uncomfortable truths. Most importantly, I recognized that while her betrayal had wounded me deeply, my worth was not determined by her actions or opinions. 6 months after walking away from our apartment, I found myself standing in a real estate office, signing papers to purchase a small but well-located condo. It was a significant financial stretch, but the commitment to establishing permanent roots felt like an important step forward. The process of furnishing and decorating my new home became a form of therapy. Each choice, a reaffirmation of my tastes and preferences, uncoupled from anyone else's approval. My professional life flourished as I channeled more energy back into work. I was assigned to lead an innovative new project, smaller than the previous one, but with greater creative control. The challenge rekindled my passion for programming, and I found myself staying late at the office, not from obligation but from genuine enthusiasm. My social circle expanded beyond the friends I had shared with Sophia. I joined a tech meetup group, connecting with others in my industry. Through a community volunteer program teaching coding to high school students, I met people from diverse backgrounds united by a desire to give back. These new connections were refreshingly uncomplicated, free from the baggage of my past relationship. On a crisp fall morning, almost exactly 1 year after discovering Sophia's betrayal, I ran into her at our once favorite coffee shop. I had avoided our old haunts for months but had gradually reclaimed them one by one, refusing to surrender the city I loved to painful associations. She was alone, looking tired and tense as she waited for her order. When she spotted me, her expression cycled rapidly through surprise, hope, and uncertainty. I nodded politely and stepped in line, maintaining a comfortable distance. To my surprise, she approached after receiving her coffee. "Arnold," she said hesitantly. "How are you?" "I am doing well," I replied, and realized with some amazement that it was true. "How about you?" "Okay," she said, her eyes darting around. "I am at a new agency now. The hours are better." A pause. "Are you still at Vertex Systems?" "Yes." "Leading a new project." The conversation felt surreal in its mundanity, as if we were distant acquaintances rather than people who had once shared a life. "That is great," she said, fidgeting with her cup sleeve. "You look good, happy." I thanked her, noting that she did not look particularly happy herself. There were new lines around her eyes, a tightness to her smile. "Are you and Jake still together?" I asked, surprising myself with the question, and even more with my genuine lack of emotional investment in her answer. She looked down. "No." That ended shortly after. Everything. It turns out he was seeing someone else at the same time. A bitter laugh escaped her. Karma, I guess. I felt no satisfaction at her revelation, no vindication or schadenfreude. Just a calm acceptance that her choices and their consequences belong to her alone, separate from my life and happiness. I am sorry to hear that I said, meaning it in the general way one might express sympathy for any acquaintance's difficulties. "I hope things improve for you." She looked up sharply, perhaps searching for sarcasm but finding none. "I really am sorry, Arnold. For everything. I know it is too late, but I need you to know that." I nodded, accepting her apology without either absolution or rejection. "I should get my coffee. Take care, Sophia." As I watched her leave the cafe, I realized that the hollow ache that had been my constant companion for months had transformed without my noticing. What remained was not pain, but perspective, not bitterness, but wisdom. Her betrayal, devastating as it had been, had ultimately forced me to rebuild my life on stronger, more authentic foundations. 2 months after that chance encounter, I met Julia through my rock climbing group. She was thoughtful and straightforward, with a quiet confidence I found attractive. Our relationship developed slowly, built on friendship first, then cautious romantic interest. I was transparent about my past, and she shared her own story of heartbreak and recovery. With Julia, I learned the difference between a healthy relationship and what I had experienced with Sophia. We communicated openly about expectations and boundaries. We maintained our individual interests and friendships. We built trust through consistency and honesty, rather than grand gestures or intense passion. And when conflicts arose, as they inevitably did, we faced them together rather than retreating into deception or avoidance. As my personal life stabilized, I found myself drawn to helping others through similar struggles. I became active in online support forums for people dealing with infidelity, offering the perspective of someone who had made it to the other side. I volunteered more regularly at the Youth Coding Center, finding purpose in mentoring teenagers, navigating their own complex journeys toward adulthood. Looking back over the past 18 months, since that fateful day when I came home early and overheard Sophia's betrayal, I can now see it as a pivotal moment, rather than merely a devastating one. Had I not discovered the truth that day, I might have continued for months or years in a relationship built on lies, perhaps even married Sophia, and faced an even more complicated unraveling later. Walking away without confrontation was not cowardice, as Sophia had claimed, but an act of self-preservation and dignity. It allowed me to maintain control over my response rather than being manipulated by her justifications or performances of remorse. The silent exit saved me from words spoken in anger that I might later regret, and protected me from being drawn back into a toxic dynamic. The journey from betrayal to healing was not linear. There were days of regression, moments of doubt, and periods when anger threatened to consume me. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, those difficult emotions lost their grip. Not because I forced them away, but because I allowed myself to fully experience them, understand them, and eventually release them. Today, I understand that Sophia's betrayal revealed as much about me as it did about her. It exposed my willingness to ignore warning signs, my tendency to lose myself in relationships, and my fear of confrontation. These painful insights became the foundation for personal growth that might never have happened otherwise. I no longer fear being alone or being betrayed again. I recognize my own strength and resilience. I trust my instincts and honor my boundaries. I know that my value does not depend on someone else's ability to recognize it. And perhaps most importantly, I have learned to distinguish between those who truly care and those who simply claim to. If you have ever experienced betrayal by someone you loved and trusted, know that the pain you feel now will not last forever. The quiet dignity of walking away can be more powerful than any confrontation. Your worth is not diminished by someone else's failure to appreciate it. And sometimes what feels like an ending is actually the beginning of a better, more authentic life. What was your experience with betrayal? How did you handle it? Comment below and let me know. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the quietest exit leads to the loudest rebirth.